Hello class. In this video, we're going to be going over 7 different properties in mathematics that we will be using this year. These 7 properties are very crucial for helping us solve different operations, addition and multiplication in specifics. But before we go over what these properties are, I want you to take a moment, pause this video, and write your complete heading, including your first and last name, the date, mathematics, your period number, and this video is named Properties. Now that we have our header so that we can easily find our assignments in our notebook, let's go over 3 of our properties. The first properties that we're going to look at is for addition. Now, the first one is our commutative property. These are, again, reviews from last year and the year before. Our commutative property of addition says as long as we are adding, we can add in any order. So for example, we have 12 plus 7. I could have also done 7 plus 12 because there's no other operation in between but addition. Then we have the associative property of addition. And in this property, we're saying we can group and add them in any order. So if I was to say here we have 5 plus parentheses 8 plus 14, I can actually add the 5 plus 8 first and then add the 14. And then last but not least, the third property of addition is the identity property of addition. And here is when I have any number, if I add 0 to it, my number stays the same. So we have the example 13 plus 0 equals 13. But that's true. If I have 1,430,000, my plus 0 would still be 1,430,000. So anything that I add 0 to just stays the same. I want you to pause this video now and write down the properties of addition along with their definition and their examples. Now that we have the properties of addition down, let's look over another set of properties, and that's properties of multiplication. Again, we have the same type. So the first one would be our commutative property, which says that I can multiply in any order, as long as I'm just multiplying and there's no other operation in between. So if I did 4 times 9, it would be the same thing as 9 times 4. Then we have the associative property of multiplication, that if I'm only multiplying, I can multiply in any order. So in this part, we're multiplying 3 times 6 first. But I could also do 11 times 3 because I was still going to get the same answer. And then our last property is our identity property of multiplication. And what this property says that if I am multiplying any number by 1, I stay the same. So here I have 4 times 1 is still going to be 4. If I have 10 times 1, it's going to be 10. If I have 1,000,000 times 1, it's going to be 1,000,000. If I have 1,430,000 times 1, it's still going to be 1,430,000. So we need to now pause this video, write down this properties of multiplication, all 3 of them, along with the examples in our notebook. Now that we have the properties of addition and properties of multiplication down in our notebook, we should be very familiar with them because we've worked with them in 3rd and 4th grade. So this is kind of just a refresher of those skills. However, we are going to combine it with our 7th property. And it's not actually called a property in the beginning like the addition and multiplication. It's called our distributive property. And our distributive property says when I multiply a sum by a number, it's the same as multiplying each addend by that number and then adding those products. So for example, here, I could have done 7 plus 9 and gotten 16 and then multiplied it by 5. Or I can actually multiply the 5 by each addend. So I could do 5 times 7 and then 5 times 9. So this is how we tend to draw it. The number on the outside multiplies each one afterwards. And then when we have our results, we add them together to get our solution. Now I want you to pause this video now, and I want you to write down the distributive property with the definition and the example in our notebook. Now that we have these properties in our notebooks And I would also strongly put them on your vocabulary cards as well. Let's look at some examples. So if I gave you this, I want you to use the properties to add 24 plus 28 plus 26. Now, doing this mentally in our heads, it can be a little bit struggling, especially since we have 4, 8, and then 6. But I know, and I look at it and I go, 4 and 6 is going to be 10. So that's going to be easy for me to be able to add those two numbers together mentally. So the first thing I'm going to use is I'm going to use the commutative property. And I'm going to switch the 26 and the 28. So that when I have this, I actually have 28 plus 24 plus 26. I'm sorry, I switched the 28 and the 24. That's using the commutative property because I could just flip them. But then I'm going to use my associative property. With my associative property, I'm going to actually group these numbers right here, okay, and put them in parentheses. Because remember, when we solve equations, those in parentheses get solved first. So now I can easily add. I know 4 plus 6 is a 10, and 20 plus 20 is 40, so 40 plus 10 is 50. So I know inside my parentheses is 50. So I have 28 plus 50. And it all goes for me looking at the number and seeing, hey, I can easily add 4 and 6 to make it a nice round 10, which is always easy. So that's using the commutative and the associative. And then it's easy to add because my 1s is 0 plus 8, which is 8, and then my 10s is 20 plus 50, which is 70. So my solution here is going to be 78. So all I did was I looked at the numbers to find what was easier for me to solve, and then use the properties of addition and multiplication, in this case addition, to be able to solve this. I want you to pause this video now and copy everything that is on your screen step by step. All right, now that we have this problem in our notebooks, let's try one more. So here I have 8 times 59. So obviously I'm going to either use the distributive property or the properties of multiplication. And I'm thinking about this and I go, 8 times 59, that's really hard to do mentally and sometimes even hard to do on paper. So if I look at this, I want to know, hey, how can I break this up to make this easier for me? And to make this easier for me, I realized I need to break up the 59. And I know that I could put that in parentheses, right? How can I easily be able to break up 59? Well, I break it up by the 10s and the 1s. So I can have 50 plus 9. So how I write this, I write that in parentheses, 8 times the 50 plus 9. And that is just basically me using my knowledge of how I can break up numbers. There are other ways that you could do it, but I like to use it by place value most of the time. Then after that, I can use the distributive property where I take 8 times 50 and 8 times 9 and then add those two together. So I separate it using the distributive property. So now here is the first time using the distributive property. And then I can actually do the multiplication. So when I do the multiplication, I know that 8 times 5 is 40. 40 times 10 gives me 400. So I have 400 at that point. And then I have 8 times 9, which is 72. So now I have 400 plus 72. And now I could just use my mental math and I know that 400 plus 72 gives me 472. I could have also broken it up using my properties of addition if I so wanted to. Now I want you to pause this video and copy everything on your screen, step by step, including the instructions on the side. Now that I have this down, I need to look at 8 times 59 because 59 is a little hard, and say we struggle a little bit with our 9 multiplications or our 8 multiplications and things like that. So now I can look at it and be like, is there another way of multiplying? And we have to look for ways that are easier for us. There's many ways of multiplying. So if I look at 8 times 59 again, and I look and I say, you know what? I don't want to split it up by doing 50 plus 9 and using the distributive property in that way. I know that if I make 59 a friendly number and then just subtract the difference, I can then also multiply. So for me, 59, a friendly number would be 60. So I can do the 8 times 60 and then just minus the 1 because there is a difference between 60 and 59. Again, if this way confuses you, please don't do it. But this is just another way we can do where we can add or subtract a friendly number. So I chose 60. Okay, so then I would have to subtract 1 because 60 minus 59 was 1 to get my correct final answer. And then I would use my distributive property. I would do the 8 times 60 and the 8 times 1 and then subtract the 2. That's by setting up our distributive property. Now I know that 8 times 6 is 48 times that 10 for that 0 gives me 480. And 8 times 1 is 8. So I would have 480 minus 8. That's using our mental math of multiplication. Then I do 480 minus 8 gives me the 472 by using mental math. I want you to pause this video now and write everything on this slide in your notebooks. Now that I have this down, I just wanted to go back to the previous slide. And we noticed that our answer here is 472, and this is 472. So I can look at ways, like I did in the first 2 slides here, in using the regular properties and breaking things up and then answering at the end. Or I could look for a friendly number and then subtract the difference or add the difference. Okay, because some people may have wanted to use, like I did here, and use the 50 and 9. It's the same process by breaking it up. But again, if this part where you're finding friendly numbers confuses you, we can work separately on that until you're comfortable with it. Because remember, there are many ways to solving things. Now that we've gone over some questions, I want you to try some on your own. Here are 2 different expressions I want you to solve using the properties in this video. Using the properties of addition, properties of multiplication, and the distributive property. Don't forget to write everything down in your notebook, along with the questions and showing all your work, okay? And then giving us the answer. If you need to review this video again, you may watch it as many times as you need to.